Okay, good evening. At this time, I would call to order the July 22nd meeting under the Planning Commission work. And we will have a roll call, please, shortly.
Chairperson Whitney,
Present.
Vice Chair Lynn, Secretary Lynn.
Here.
Member Evans.
Here.
Member Hartman.
Here.
Member Roach. Member LaClaire.
Here.
Okay, thank you all. At this time, for the agenda, I would call for a motion regarding the minutes of the May 21st workshop meeting. We did not have a workshop in June, therefore these are from the last meeting, which was May 21st. Do I have a motion regarding those that were presented in our packet?
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion from Brad, second from Justin. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying
Aye.
aye. All right, moving on. I am going to turn this over to Gwen Moore from the Lancaster County Planning Commission, who is going to do a presentation on the topic of simplified zoning.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay. I am not used to doing this in a scheduled time period. So if you see I'm running over, or you're getting
About an hour.
brain dead of what, it's a lot of stuff.
55 minutes, so you can cite those plans for Heather.
Right.
Exactly. So just cut me off at any time. This is something that is a lot to process. And if it's getting too overwhelming or we need to cut it off, we can always come back. Just know that my name is Gwen Newell. I'm with the Lancaster County Planning Department. With me is Joella, Matt, and Christine, in part because Christine is your liaison, and the other two, as well as Aim from our office, helped create this document. And I can't take notes and talk at the same time. And they're also here to step in and to help answer questions as needed. So I did provide a packet for you at your desk. This was provided previously as well, and it is available on the Lancaster County Planning Department's website. So if people are interested in finding these documents from being online, you can reach them on the lancastercountyplanning.org/publications. So just be aware that you can find all these documents there. So zoning, as well as subdivision and land development ordinances, implement the goals and community development direction of your comprehensive plans. But they are the document that provides the hard numbers to those general concepts. Unfortunately, zoning ordinances historically have become much more complicated than to understand by the local residents and to administer by the municipalities. And the goal of the simplified zoning tool is to help provide greater regulation and consistency efficiently and effectively across municipal line. So we're hoping that these ordinances can help you streamline the planning approval process, make it more cost efficient to build the type of communities that your comprehensive plan and the county's comprehensive plan calls us to create. So the Lancaster County Planning Department's, well, it's not the department's, it's the county's comprehensive plan, Places 2040, called out 7 different catalytic tools that can be used to implement the comprehensive plans. Simplified zoning is one of those 7 tools. So this zoning tool is not just a single document, but it's currently a total of 5 coordinated documents. So this document is not, you're not going to pick it up and go, oh, this is what a zoning ordinance looks like. This is what a model, they've given us a model to replicate. It's pieces of a zoning ordinance. So the first one that we created was the Big Fix document. Looks like this. It's basically 15 broad changes that municipalities could implement regarding their zoning regulations. They're very general in nature. We are in the process. Our team is in the process of creating how to use this document to go in further depth. But if you're interested in housing or natural preservation or parking, you can turn to this document and we can help you figure out ways to simplify your current zoning ordinances dealing with these issues. Within Lancaster County, you all know, hopefully, that we have 60 different municipalities with over 500 zoning districts, each with their own separate and unique permitted uses and regulations. So one of the reasons why simplified zoning is one of the catalytic tools is we just need to recognize that we have too many different regulations throughout the county. And in your zoning ordinance alone, I think you have 18 separate zoning districts. Well, the second simplified zoning document is a list of proposed zoning districts. It's a horizontal document that looks like this, that actually provides an outline of 18 countywide zoning districts. So we are actually recommending currently 18 zoning districts for the entire county, along with their stated purposes and characteristics. It is sort of broken down. There is a dashed line on the first page, halfway down. The upper ones are more rural zoning districts, and then it goes progressively from rural to urban. So this does outline all 18. We do not expect each municipality to adopt all 18. You can't, because some are very rural, like agricultural, conservation, and preservation, and that's for the townships. And then we have downtown borough core city, a zoning district that we recommend only for Lancaster City to have. So we encourage municipal officials to look at that zoning district document and see which ones match your anticipated community characteristics. Now, these are working documents. We expect to update them as we get feedback from our municipal officials. So as you look at the 18 simplified zoning districts, let us know if we are missing something. But recognize that we can't go back to 550. So we don't have time tonight, but we would welcome having a future discussion with you on which of these zoning districts could match your anticipated community characters. Like taking a look at your current zones, seeing how they mesh, what we're missing, what would work for you versus us. Yes.
So that's an offer.
It is an
That's what
offer.
we've been working
Okay.
on with the comprehensive plan, trying to reduce the number of districts, but also, like what almost, kind of what should they be, what are they most like?
Perfect.
The land use classification that they did in the plan.
Okay. All right.
So
Wonderful.
that's kind of what we've been working on when we have time.
Okay, that's a good start. We were working with another municipality. We came out and had the same presentation last night, and they started with their definitions. Yeah, that takes months and months and months, and it seems like you get nowhere. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're starting with the zoning
But
district.
what kind of put us on hold with that was the changes that we're making now,
Okay,
especially to the light business and some definitions and things. And we thought instead of working with the current document, zoning document, we want those changes incorporated in, but we're looking at everything in one place.
okay.
So, the hearing on those zoning changes is scheduled for the end of August. So after that, I think we'll really get back and start digging into this combining districts.
We do recognize that a lot of municipalities are in the process of updating their ordinances. This is a lot to dive. Don't expect people to jump and do this immediately. Stop what they're doing and go in immediately. We recognize that there's going to be changes to your current ordinance. Get those fixes in place and then go back and take a closer look. So your process is perfectly fine. It's totally, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. With this document that includes, and characteristics, we also created a bulk regulation document. So once the communities choose which zoning districts out of the 18 might fit your needs, document, this is where the rubber meets the road. Where we tried to go into get specific. In creating this document, though, we realized that another way to simplify a zoning ordinance is to not regulate each zoning district. We agreed not to regulate each zoning district the same exact way as previous ones. We came to find out in talking with our planning partners that, like, agricultural and natural zone land doesn't need to be as highly regulated as downtown districts, And we were trying to come up with numbers going, why are we even trying to come up with the number? Regulating it is not important. It's just adding additional regulation. We're trying to simplify the ordinance. So we recommend that every single zoning district doesn't have to regulate the same thing as the other zoning districts within your municipality. The other thing that we did is that because land uses are always changing, municipalities must through a costly process of updating their zoning ordinance to add missing regulations based on individual land uses that come up. Airbnbs didn't used to be a thing, now it's a thing. Data centers didn't used to be a thing, now it's a thing. Now we have to quickly regulate. Vaping didn't used to be a thing, now it's a thing. Every time a new land use comes in, our regulations are outdated. We got to quickly go through the process to update them. And we were trying to figure out a way to head that off at the pass. So one of the things that we thought about doing is instead, in this document on the right-hand side of each of the district regulations are impacts expected to be found in this zone as permitted uses by right. So instead of regulating specific land uses, you're regulating their impacts. All right. So in addition to impacts that we expect or permit to see within those zoning districts permitted by right, there's also impacts for land uses that are not allowed in that zone. If it's meant to be only a residential zone, it's not expected to have any commercial-based impacts. And then we also have a list of greater impacts that may involve greater regulation that identify which land uses need to go through the special exception and or conditional process. So you won't find in here a list of all these different land uses. What you'll find is a list of impacts. Okay? We understand that that's a unique concept, but zoning officers have done a version of that informally. We've met with the zoning officer, building and code official, whatever meeting. We've met with them 3 times. We have not gotten any pushback on this concept. It's really new, and it still needs to be worked out, but as a working document, they think that we're on an okay path. One of the ways to help a zoning officer and municipality understand how to regulate via impacts is we've created this next document, Assessment of Land Use Impacts. We've come up with such snazzy titles. In it, the first page is an explanation of why we should look at impacts instead of, what makes a vape shop different than a data center. what are the impacts in one versus the other. But after that is the next sheet is a spreadsheet that has all the zoning districts as well as what impacts. Oop, turn this right side up, Gwen. The list of the zoning districts and then all the impacts. So we do recognize that this document is probably going to be highly amended. Well, this worksheet still continues to need help. We need to understand what impacts are truly important to the municipalities and how can we regulate them or and have them be identifiable early enough in the process when it comes like pre-land development, pre-submitting a land development. We're talking about a landowner coming to a zoning officer and going, is this use allowed in this zone? Well, what are the impacts? Is it going to have water issues? Is it going to have sound issues? Is it going to have traffic generation? And then come up with the list that way. Now that I totally bypassed my notes, let me find out where I can go. Yeah, we do understand that regulating via impacts, not specific land uses, is going to take a lot of process. But we feel that ultimately encouraging municipalities to proactively permit uses based on the inherent impacts and regulating the intensity of those impacts, anticipated impacts, will ultimately simplify the process and the cost of zoning and development. You're regulating the impacts to make sure that that will continue, your community or your neighborhood that zone is within, no matter what you call that land use, the impacts are not going to negatively impact the community. Regulating this way enables municipalities to adapt more easily to each community needs, because they do keep changing. Our needs and how we're buying and selling stuff, changes. Our housing stock changes. And we feel that having a document that doesn't list out all the land uses that will then need to be updated, gets old and gets stale. Whereas the way that we're doing it, once you regulate the impacts, then what the name of the land use is can continue to be updated. We do encourage that allowing permitted uses by right with a streamlined process of, yes, you meet our rules, you have to follow our subdivision and land development and go forth and build when a land use impact is compatible with the desired community character. It results in lengthier and more costly conditional use and special exception processes for the land uses that generate impacts that might be less compatible. You're uncertain whether that impact does meet the neighborhood character. All right, then you're through the conditional use or special exception process. And then it says, if you have impacts that absolutely don't match the community character, you're not allowed. So this zoning ordinance tool is a work in progress. And we welcome and expect discussion on how this will work, because we need to upgrade and improve these documents. We expect that the documents will change and expect especially that this land assessment of land use impacts document to be one of the ones that we update annually or semi-annually. We haven't quite figured that out. So keep an eye out on the documents that are on our website, because they each start with a date. They all have like a May 2025 or, So keep an eye out for the latest revision date on the documents found on the website. Because as we gather more feedback, we're going to be updating. We are not sure. We're even in some discussion internally. We need to add another zoning. We currently do not have a zoning district for urbanized park and rec. The natural areas are natural preservation and conservation. We've noticed a lot of boroughs have park and rec zoning districts. We originally thought that those could be use allowed within the underlying other zoning district. It didn't need to be a standalone. We're still under discussion on whether we need to actually create a standalone zoning district or whether that could be rolled into. So giving us feedback would be helpful on that. So that's another document that could be changed. Our last document is the definitions. So we did create a document that has acronyms and language that we think that are either found in the current documents or that would be helpful to be consistent across county lines. We work quite closely with the housing community because it's just shocking that there's no countywide definition. Let me get to it. Under definite dwellings, under dwellings. Yes, single family detached, single family semi-detached. There's no state standard definition. There's no federal standard definition for housing types. And we're like, you know what? We need to be consistent across county lines. So we work quite closely with planning partners to come up with definitions that we try to keep simple. Why overly complicate the definition? Trying to keep things simple, yet working for the municipality and the builders both. So we do encourage you to take a look at these definitions. We do encourage you to work with your adjacent municipalities and municipalities within your region to and get some basic definitions that are similar within the zoning ordinances. We do recognize, same with the zoning districts. It would be great. We're not in my lifetime, I think, are we ever going to see zoning ordinances that are cross municipal boundary lines. The one zoning officer is enforcing for two different municipalities. But you can be consistent in your some definitions. You can be consistent in your what zoning districts you have and what their purpose is and what their characteristics are, and begin to start to be consistent in the bulk regulations. That would be a win-win-win-win-win as far as simplifying your zoning and helping to create the communities, making it easier for developers to build the communities that we want to see based on the input from our comprehensive plan. Now, yes, these are a work in progress. We do expect that you're going to agree with some of these concepts and thoughts, and you're going to highly disagree with some of these concepts and thoughts. So, we get it, totally get it. We have heard, we like the thought of zoning based on impacts, but man, to go from that to absolutely no land use, find land uses, beyond scary. So we get that it's probably going to be the 80-20 rule. You're going to agree with 80%, but 20% needs to be very specific to your municipality. So if you have an issue with certain zoning land uses in certain zones, we are totally comfortable with you adopting pieces and parts of this and then following in and utilize, like adding things to specific to Columbia Borough. We're okay with that. So you got to run, you got to crawl before you run, you got to walk before you run. So we don't expect people to go from crawl to 5K.
The good thing is I think we're already walking at least.
Yeah.
The districts being the big thing. Now, I'll go there because we haven't really had much problems with it, but I know parking is something. I saw there's no suggestions in any of the districts.
Yeah, we did recognize that parking absolutely is an issue. It's one of our big fixes, but we were instructed that we had a date that we needed to get this out, which is why we're going, all right, here's the date we're getting it out. But there are so many phase 2 things that we have been instructed to follow up on. Parking is one of them. If we hear parking enough, we will move that up on the list. So we did recognize that parking is an issue, so we added it in the bulk regulations. We just didn't add numbers yet.
Well, I can't say that that's really been a topic that we've been working on, but
No.
eventually,
Yeah,
yeah, we'll get
Yeah.
there.
so,
It's been more about where, like on the map, and
Yeah.
working with the future land use map.
so we did struggle as a team because county planning staff, zoning ordinances are not implemented at the county level in Pennsylvania. We work with, but have never implemented a zoning ordinance. So to come out and create one was, so we met with as many planning partners as many times as they wanted, come meet with us. It was very hard for people to give us numbers. We're like, okay, parking is an issue. Well, give us numbers. We have, zoning ordinances are all about the numbers. And it's like, we can't have this be, zoning ordinances are different comprehensive plans. Big concept, this is where the rubber meets the road. Give us the rubber to meet the road. And that was very hard to pull out. If you ever took a look at those average daily trip books, they are so, our transportation planners are going to hate me. They are so outdated. They're from the 70s, and they're land uses that were out west that have big pieces of ground, and they're not in a borough anywhere, and it's just not a good standard to replicate. So where do you go to find good numbers to replicate, to put in this document? We didn't have the time to do that. So we will be taking the time.
It's,
I told these guys it's job security. We're gonna be working on this for years.
You don't want to run good ideas off because they
Right.
can't squeeze it in or they can't get a variance.
Right.
But it also, like, I'd say some of the public or merchants feel like there's not enough, and some people think it's fine.
Right. Right.
It all depends. Like, it could be fine in one day, and I mean, sometimes I got parked at the meter,
Yeah.
across the street from my house. But you don't want to stifle anything. But you feel like the public is owed at least, like, you're not going to create more of an issue for that block or that, whatever neighborhood or something.
And parking is a hard subject because one of the thought processes is residents have gotten spoiled with, and they expect free parking right in front of wherever they're planning on going. We don't walk, we hate when we pay for it, and they'll go somewhere else where it's free. So, but can we afford to have a parking space for every vehicle? We have more vehicles than ever before. Every house used to have one, and now every person in a house, including the kids, 16 and older, have a car. Create parking for everybody. Parking needs are. We have a person in our office that's getting rid of their car and not having a car and just using Uber and the bus. And for my generation, it's just mind blowing. But it's like, so the parking needs are changing as well. So we haven't bit off that piece of the apple, but we do need to.
I think, like what we saw with, where the houses burned down, we were looking at it last month. Who's doing that? The redevelopment authority, yeah. That they were, as part of their redeveloping these lots.
Yeah.
They have parking in the back of them. So they were able to make space and at least give those people, it's off street. Otherwise, there's no driveways or anything except for the avenue. And a lot of folks, whether it's the businesses or people that live nearby, that's the situation.
And the properties are bounded by a public street and 2 alleys. So,
I get it. I live,
So it's really hard to put it into law.
it is.
Like what you should do.
It is. The
Yeah.
second you do, somebody needs a variance. Yeah.
Every municipality, Lancaster County has different needs when it comes to parking. Different places have different levels of needing cars to get around. Columbia's one of the better served boroughs
Marietta, right up the, river from you. If you lived in Marietta, could you get a grocery store, a pharmacy, wherever you need to go to get where you need to go? It doesn't, yeah.
One of my questions, one of my thoughts is, this does away with the tables of permitted uses. Am I correct? Okay. Yet what I have heard consistently is, if it's not in those tables, or if it is not permitted, then it's going, if you do not have a place for a use, it can go anywhere. Like with the vape
Right.
shops.
Right.
If you don't have them within a district, they can go anywhere in your borough that they want to.
So we have had input from a land use lawyer who was in support of this document as drafted. But we have not officially taken it to the county solicitor for review and
Call
comment.
where I'm coming
Right,
from.
I
You
get
know,
it.
If you don't have it, they can do it.
So it depends on the level of strictness of your solicitors. Because I do believe, and I'm not a lawyer, but I do believe case law says like you need to provide for residential, but it doesn't, so you need to provide for commercial, but it doesn't necessarily say every single type of commercial under the sun. You need to provide for residential, but what type is up to you guys. So now your solicitor might say different, but we do recognize that we were talking with a municipality yesterday evening, and their issue was adult uses. They're, they,
We went through that yet.
right.
Yep.
So they, we recognize that there may be some land uses that you might need the first go around. If you use this tool, you might still need to keep your land use chart for some things. But we'd encourage you to think what impacts are there that you want to regulate vape shops versus another, like a Turkey Hill. What makes that different and what are the impacts?
Well, I mean, you literally
Versus
had
the other.
Subway turn into a vape shop, same
Right.
building, right there in the
Right.
corner. And like, I guess they're both just selling things.
They are
But although
both
the vape
just-
shop has a heck of a lot more lights and a bad for people across the street. But I mean, really, other than kind of like the, or whatever.
Right. So is
it's
it,
selling the same
Right.
stuff, so like the metal parking. But,
right.
things like that are touchy subjects, I guess.
They are. So we do recognize that most municipalities, first time out of the gate using this tool, are going to need to sort of modify it to their comfort
Will
level.
have to be
Yes.
a little bit of blending
Right.
of the old and the new.
Right. We do recognize that. But knowing that we recognize it, we still feel that regulating based on impacts is the simpler, more efficient way to go long-term. Once developers get used to it, once zoning officers get used to regulating that way, we think that it's a way to get the community character that we want to see without having to change and update your zoning ordinance every year, depending on what new impact comes in.
Yeah, or use, really. because
Right.
Things change.
Right.
Even with, even if you do, whether it's, legal saying, you have to regulate the uses, or you at least have to list the uses, there's probably a lot of things that can be combined. If, following that thought process,
Yes.
but not going completely away from
Right.
permitted uses, special exception uses, whatever. Seems like a lot of the zoning ordinance bulk is like the standards for individual uses and things, right? Like there's
Yes.
special things for each you know, whether you're
Simplify that.
manufacturing that or
Coordinate,
crushing
combine.
rocks.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
but is there a way to just be like, just needs to be away from residential people?
Right, this is a manufacturing use, which is why in some of our bulk times a residential impact or residential use is not permitted at all. Sometimes
Right.
it is, sometimes it's going, if it's a mix and you're doing something really funky, then let's make it a special exception kind of thing. Yeah. Would you be interested, now it does sound like maybe in the fall, you'd be willing to go through that process of figuring out what might make the best fit.
I mean, we kind of have to schedule it through, make sure that, you know, we're not.
Council, make sure council's okay.
Yeah, like the priorities, because we, you know, we were given a priority
Right.
to, you know, wrap up the light business stuff, you know, for
Okay.
the industrial park to make sense. So, I mean,
Right.
you know, there,
Yep.
did that, but.
Yeah.
I don't know, that was, we were working on
And
that.
I think I
Are we done with the Airbnb stuff? Or at least with the draft?
the Airbnb, they decided not to touch.
Oh, okay. That makes that easier.
That's correct. Because when we had the joint meeting, yes, to discuss the light business, what
Yeah.
they were looking for there, we decided to just let it ride for now. We can come to an agreement between
Yeah.
council and planning, we could not come to an agreement.
The issue was,
Definition.
no,
Where?
Expanding,
having it all in one rental ordinance short-term.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Short-term and rental.
And I don't know that that is,
You're not sure if that's the right way to go.
No,
I don't think it is, but I think there were others that felt it is. And I don't think that's.
and there were others who felt that the area where they were committed should be expanded.
Yeah.
There was a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
about
So-
Oh my gosh, we talked about it a lot, and it was like both
Yeah.
opinions are good, are,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah,
what I
there
mean?
was
They're-
valid
Yeah,
points
oh,
on
yeah,
both
yeah, yeah.
sides, and it's just,
So-
we just thought, we're not gonna spend any more time on this,
Yeah.
just let it ride the way it is.
Well, and there were other things that were much further along the process.
Right.
You know, that can get finished up.
Right,
So one of the things that was brought up at the other municipality was, do you consider Airbnbs a residential use or a commercial use? And for them, because they also didn't regulate them, but their concern was is that too many Airbnbs were going to go into their purely residential zoning district. So one of the things they can do is they can regulate it as a commercial use. It's a commercial business. Therefore, in these regulations, it could go into a place that allows a mix of land uses, but not purely residential.
Just to play devil's advocate on that.
Right.
This is the conversation that our council had, is, okay, so you're saying that a short-term rental, if you define that as a commercial use, why is a long-term rental not a commercial use? Because that is also making money.
I would call them both a commercial use.
So, and that's kind of where, that's where we're.
Okay. I would actually
That's
consider,
That's our holdup, because
right,
we're almost 50/50
okay.
rental and.
Well, so I'm going to clarify. If it's a rental apartment, so long-term, so when I heard long-term rental, I heard like a month as opposed to a couple days. So you're talking apartment building that has, to me, there is a difference. That is a residential use. If you're intended for one person to be there for a year. The impacts of somebody living there for a year is different than the impacts of somebody coming and changing every week or two. The noise, the parking, all those issues are going to be different with the short-term rental than it is for, somebody's moving in for a year.
So like, don't you see like a common difference between short and long is like almost always 30 days, like in definitions, you know, from code. zoning, right?
So the short term is 30 days or
Less, and then anything else is long-term. It seems very common that that's the number. Is there some sort of like housing
I'm
definition?
Matt is our housing
Yeah.
guru.
Otherwise, it just seems like everybody is going for 30 days. Uh, Okay, gotcha. There had to be a reason.
Yeah,
Had to come from somewhere.
so I'm gonna take as many minutes as I can. Do you have any other questions?
I think the definitions is the place to start, to try to work with another municipality. You know, if you're doing that, some of these, you know, and to even look through these, and at this point, you know, is this what we want to adopt as definitions for?
So we wouldn't-
Opposed to the current definition.
We would not recommend, these are the only definitions that you use. So I would look into maybe replacing some of the ones if they're, I don't know, honestly, I did not research to see how old your zoning ordinance is, how out, I don't want to say out of date, but there are, so if you do want to include definitions and comments on that, just know that we did not include a lot of land uses. We did not define a lot of land uses. We did define data center, but we did try and keep our definitions as simplistic as we could. Keep it simple, stupid. Why have so much language? Why have so many regulations in the definition in addition to the area regulations, in addition to the special, you know, additional, it's too many places. Keep it simple. This is purely the definition, regulate it elsewhere, kind of thing. Now, it would be helpful to claim whether, you know, an Airbnb is a commercial or a residential use, because that then does feed into our language that we have on what's permitted in what districts. So, but other than that, yeah, if you want to start with, we'll start wherever you guys want to start.
I'm just throwing that out there. I'd like
What's that? The definitions?
to see what mixes with our definitions, to see what definitions would work better for,
So can I make a
opinions.
suggestion, Mary?
yes, ma'am.
She said at the last place that they started with the definitions and knew that wasn't a good idea.
Well, it takes a while. It takes a while. So one of the things is that I think if you're going to try and regulate it and be consistent within the region, don't you come up with all the regulations, all the definitions, and then invite another neighboring municipality to the process and assume that they're going to be comfortable with the definitions that you figured out. So take this time, if you're going to start with the definitions, and I'm sorry, I work in the southern end now mostly, so I'm not as familiar with what do you have a standalone comp plan, or did you, okay. All right, so you have quite a few, do you have quite a few municipalities around you, or is it pretty much just
West Hempfield.
West Hempfield?
Yeah.
How well do you work with West Hempfield? I know, we get that a lot with other municipalities. So, we're,
Yeah.
what was I thinking? So,
I know,
you
I
can-
like Andrew.
so-
Yeah, it's it.
So like a lot of boroughs, if you're surrounded by a single municipality that's not on the same planning, you know, location and time period as you are, think outside the box, going, you are a borough, you're one of our absolute biggest boroughs. But what other borough within your region could you work with and maybe have consistent definitions? So if you work a lot with Marietta, reach out to Marietta and say, hey, would you guys like to work together and update our definitions together? And at least so that the boroughs in the region have consistent borough definitions. And then when it's time to start that discussion, come to the table with both groups together to start that process and work on that process. It doesn't necessarily have to be your very adjacent municipality. It could just be the one that you either work with the most or is like you the most in your region. Just a thought.
Yeah, Wrightsville, your county.
Honestly,
Going over the road.
We have area, that's not.
Yeah, that's.
honestly, that's the same issue with Christiana down in the southern end.
Yeah.
Ackland, right next to them. They're basically, spitting distance of Ackland in a totally different county. Like, look, we'd really rather work with Ackland. Okay, let's do it. Who says that we can't work regionally across county lines? Now, if you have issues, then you have issues, but, yeah, so.
How long has Wrightsville even had zoning?
Do they have it?
County is like 12 less
I-
than there.
Do they even?
I don't even know if they have.
I don't know if they do.
I don't know that they have.
I don't.
Yeah.
They
Oh, do they?
State.
But it's new, right? It hasn't been that long. Okay.
When my daughter lived over there, they did not have zoning.
Right.
Hasn't been long.
So
It's working.
So I don't know if that's where we want to start, if you want to look more at the,
What if we gave them the future land use map? Well, you have the comprehensive plan. The land use map, we were looking for help on combining.
That's what we.
So
Consolidation.
one of the things that we could do, in the meantime, while you're currently working on your updates, we could come up with and create, here's what we think your current zoning is, and here's what we think might be a good match for if you used our zoning districts in the simplified zoning. Just so it's a starting point, so you don't have to look at all 18, you go, oh, the county thinks we should use existing residential. What is that? And dive deep into that, instead of looking at all.
I think
Oh,
maybe
18.
what we need to do is share with you where we are at this point.
Okay.
Because we had started looking, getting them down. We were looking actually at simplifying to the extent of having only 7 zoning districts. And we were working with Jessica Fieldhouse with our engineer,
C.S.
C.S. Davidson. So there are some documents there that we could at least share with you
That would be
to
helpful.
show you what we were looking at.
Right.
And I can bring them,
That's okay. That's okay.
I can talk with Paula and we can see about getting them to you, or if you want to sit down sometime.
So I'm going to ask a root question, and you can say, root question, not interested in. Is that your borough engineer? Like, were you organization to help you through that process?
Yeah, Justice helped us with a few different
Justice
things.
helped us with.
She was
Okay.
also helped with the comprehensive plan
Yeah.
too. Like there was
So
a committee.
just recognize that we are, our time is spent with taxpayer dollars, not Columbia Borough specific dollars.
Well, no, I mean, what we were thinking is, like if you're, trying to match, see where there's crossover. We've
Do it
already
with
done-
your proposed language, not the
Yeah,
current.
well, with,
Right.
Okay,
yeah, like the future land use map that was
Yeah.
in the comp plan, it was
Right.
kind of like what we were going from
perfect. Okay,
to
yeah.
consolidate and, like, okay, if you read like the description of the districts, like how would you envision that this lines up with what, I mean, there's only 10.
Right,
Well, we do have some areas where there's no public utilities, like out on Blue Lane, right? So there would be
Okay.
something without utilities.
all right.
Otherwise, there's only 10 districts, once you take the city and the rest
Right.
of the,
I love
think,
that concept of actually taking a look at your current language that you took from your comprehensive plan, not your current future land use map. I mean, not your future zoning ordinance that's
Correct.
excellent.
Yep.
And starting from that.
we
Okay,
started, we were
Yeah.
working off of that.
okay.
Yep.
I would just like to let you guys know, like, when put this together and I was reviewing it, the one thing that caught my eye when we figured out the wholesale change to the impacts was a lot of this is kind of subjective. That's one of the things that would need to be addressed, because when you talk about a moderate noise impact, well, what's moderate to me is completely different than what's moderate to my neighbor who has a 5-year-old with a drum set. That's two different, you know what I mean? They're vastly different definitions. And so that's, I think, one of the to nail down.
One, yeah, because one of the phase 2 things to work on is in the impacts, assessment of land use impacts. This chart that says high, medium, and low, we didn't put any numbers with that. Okay, what is the high, what is a medium level, what is a low level? Again, work in progress. We need to get there, but we haven't gotten there yet. So if you go down this route, it absolutely needs to be tweaked until, as a community, we can come up with numbers.
I feel like you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that disagree, including us and council, that we want to like make the zoning ordinance more user friendly, whether it's administrating it or for a citizen or a business. So you don't want to we want people to invest in town, whether it's businesses or just somebody buying a home and fixing it up. So you don't want it to deter that, but at the same time, everybody feels like you owe not to create a situation where you're making it worse for somebody. That's the juggle, right?
So, and I think what we're saying now is to look next at our future land use map and what we were looking at with consolidating districts. The definitions can come with it. Okay? And possibly getting back together some maybe out to
Throw some dates, throw some times out. That is a short time away and a long time away. So I'm not quite sure, what our be involved. Obviously not 4 people from the county. It's not official for us to come out. So yes, give us some dates and times and some thoughts and we'll set something up.
And the other thing is for us to get that information to you
Yes.
as to where we stand right now, how far we've gone in looking at this consolidation and land uses and so on.
I appreciate that. Could you actually send it to Christine since she's your liaison and then she will pass it on to the rest of the team?
Do you have her contact information? Okay.
Yeah, I do greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time.
We'll
Thank you,
have
Gwen.
Paula be our liaison here at the current time, okay?
Wonderful. Thank
Well,
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
It's been
you.
very good tonight. Thank you.
You don't mind reading off?
No, you don't have. to.
Fine.
Okay. Anyone have any comments or questions from the public? Okay, moving on, our next meeting is scheduled for August 19th. Do I have a motion to adjourn this workshop meeting?
So moved.
I have a motion from Justin. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Deb. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 6:55.
Just in time to sign the plans, right?